So it's a separate business. Laura Hammett Living is a separate
right back
business.
at the start.
It is, and that's exactly how it feels. And that's why it's been really, really exciting for me, because I do feel like I'm kind of going back to the beginning again.
Full circle.
Of starting a business. It feels like starting a business from scratch, because in many ways you are. It's a different type of business.
Hi there, I'm Matt Stahl, and welcome to the Super Prime Property Show, where we discuss the world of super prime real estate by talking with leading designers, architects, developers, and agents. This podcast aims to explore the intricacies of the industry, delving into conversations that hopefully inspire, inform, and entertain. Before we get started, please could I ask a favour? If you're not already, could you hit the subscribe button and give us a follow? You can find us on Instagram at Super Prime Property Show. Thank you. Today we have the fabulous Laura Hammett of Laura Hammett Interiors on the show. Laura Hammett Interiors is regularly voted a top 100 interior designer worldwide. Laura Hammett Interiors, as a business, provides full interior architecture and furnishing design services to some of the world's literally most discerning clients. You only need to take a look at her hugely popular Instagram account and the many hundreds of thousands of followers to see how far she has raised the bar in the interior design world. And now, not content with designing homes globally from the Bahamas to Bondi, she is launching her own interiors range, Laura Hammett Living. Should be a fascinating chat. Okay, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Back in, if I could start with the story, actually.
Do.
Back in 2013, we had just developed a Muse house. We were really proud of it. We went back to the bank when it was finished to get the valuation done. And he showed us some comparables of some nearby Muse houses that had been developed. Mm-hmm. I'd never heard of you guys back then, but you showed us your one, and it was incredible. And as much as I tried to argue with him that ours was the same standard, the value was very clear that it was a totally different level. And that was 2013.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. I was just thinking back, that means I had a 1-year-old child who's about to turn 12. So really long time ago. And it feels like a lifetime ago, personally, but also business-wise. I mean, we were in such a different place then. So thank you for that. We loved that project. It was actually an interesting one. It was a real turning point project for us, because we went from, I would say, typically doing kind of West London family homes on much more of a kind of moderate budget. And then we got kind of catapulted into prime central London with that project. And we were told by the developer to kind of just throw everything you have at it. Right. And we really did do that. And actually looking back, there's parts of it that I really love. There's parts of it. Yeah, I do love the staircase. That was like a real kind of wow moment. I think what I definitely critique now I look back, we were trying everything, almost kind of experimenting creatively. So there was no real thread in our design, which was an experience for us, and it created something, I guess, a bit different on the market. But I think our process now is a lot more kind of considered. Okay. So I think it was definitely an experimental project, but we learned a lot and we definitely pushed ourselves out of kind of what was a bit more of a mainstream aesthetic into something a bit more kind of bold and more of what the kind of luxury market wanted. Okay, right. Well, let's go back to the start then. Okay. So Laura Hammett Interiors started in 2008? It did, yes. And I feel like I've told this story 1,000 times, so sorry to anyone who's heard this before, but it's not a typical kind of starting point for a company like ours, I would say, in that it was very, very small and very much kind of an accidental business that I started. And it was me on my own, and personal reasons meant that I had to find some way to earn a living, kind of self-employed. Yep. So I was really just kind of scrabbling, thinking of the things that I can do. And one of my skills was sewing. So I thought, because I had trained in interior architecture, I was working in the industry for a few years. Okay. But I just couldn't continue with a full-time job. I needed to be based at home more. So I started making cushions and selling them on eBay, which was a real shot in the dark. Yeah. I didn't think anybody would buy them. They didn't buy many of them, I have to say. But I started selling them, and then I started thinking, okay, maybe I've also got a little bit of kind of tech ability, not to the extent of Aaron. my husband, who's business partner as well, he's very, very tech savvy, but enough for me to kind of play around with building a website myself. So I built using templates and various different guides. I built a e-commerce website and was selling handmade products similar to mine, but like ceramics and a few other blankets, just some nice kind of homeware products, selling them alongside my cushions. And that was kind of okay. I wasn't making a huge amount of money from it. I was working at a graphic design at a magazine, doing graphic design as well to make ends meet. And I then, along with a friend who was local in the area, we found an empty shop. And we just thought, why don't we track down the landlord and do a kind of pop-up, 3-month pop-up.
Where was that?
It was in Brook Green, which is around the corner from where we lived, Blythe Road. The space is actually still there.
Is that right?
And the so kind of, I'm elaborating too much, but basically we said, can we fit it out ourselves if we can have 3 months free rent, just to kind of prove that, you know, it's worth it. It sat there empty. He said, fine, whatever, I don't really care. Not thinking we would do very much with it. We went down to B&Q and bought lots of MDF and built all sorts of display stands. I did a window display, which is still standing today. I drive past and think, my God, how?
15 years back.
And anyway, so she was an art dealer, kind of from home. And she had art on the walls. I had products on display. And we had about a year of trading. And through that, I started doing interior design again. So this is kind of the long-winded way of me getting back into the industry by doing local homes, a bit of upholstery, a bathroom design.
Yeah.
Slowly kind of grew. And then I was doing kind of complete homes within that kind of West London, Brook Green, Hammersmith area. And it worked really nicely. And the shop didn't last because it was kind of around 2008.
Yeah.
And things were just starting to kind of fall apart.
Yeah.
So I feel like probably wasn't even a full year of trading. Okay. But it was very fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Not very professional. But we had a good time. And it definitely got me my foot in the door with private clients and also developers as well.
Sure.
So it was kind of a unorthodox start, but it worked to an extent.
And then fast forward to 2013-14 when we first met.
Yes.
So then you were on Lettuce Street. You're a bit more established then.
So we moved because the studio we were in was really quite small in Brook Green. So we moved to Lettuce Street, which was at the end of where we were living at the time. So I'd met Aaron between kind of the beginning of this story and where we are now. I'd met Aaron. He was working as a product designer.
Yep.
He ended up, after a lot of kind of back and forth and discussions, quitting that job and joining me. We got married, we had our first child, and we were living in Parsons Green. And at the end of the road was the most beautiful studio, if you remember. You came to see it, all glazed, kind of double height glazing. It's really rare.
With a sort of steel staircase.
Yeah, beautiful. Not the most practical place to have a space because in the winter it's unbearable and in the summer it's unbearable. So we would have to kind of close the studio and send people home a couple of days a year. But it was really beautiful and inspiring and a real kind of moment for me of like, this feels proper. Like we've really got a business now. And that was lovely. It's probably my favourite office we've ever had, just for that reason. It felt very sentimental. So I think we moved in there. We were 3 people. There was Aaron, myself, and 1 designer.
Okay.
And I think we had a young baby. I can't remember. I must have had a baby.
But just touching on that, you know, I mean, like, obviously with you and Aaron, with your husband, you know, working together and that whole dynamic, you know, it's like people sort of brush it over, but you know, so many people say I could never work with my partner.
Lots of people say that to me. Yeah.
And it's like, not just that, but, you know, throwing in, you mentioned the 1-year-old.
We've now got 2 kids. Yeah.
It's like, it's, you know, what is it? I mean, to run a business as well as be creative, you know, and how did you, is there any secret tips?
I don't know. I mean, you've got young kids, haven't you?
I do, yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I don't know any different, so I couldn't
just
tell
do
you.
it.
You just do it. I mean, I'm more in admiration, to be honest, to people who have business partners who aren't their spouses, because I feel like we can say whatever we need to say to each other.
Sure.
Nothing builds up, nothing lingers. We're like one mind now. And I think we are particularly lucky that the dynamic of our personalities works really well in a business capacity as well as in a personal capacity. But I also just think I can't imagine an alternative to having somebody that I couldn't just say everything to. I think it just, complete honesty, complete trust. We're in this together. I think the reason it works very well on a personal level is that there's never any resentment either way, because, if I'm taking a step back from work to raise the children when they're young, he wants that for me and for our family, and vice versa. If he needs to work harder for a certain period of time, or I do, like for this new business we've launched, which we may discuss in a minute, I did heavily have to throw myself into that. He picked up the slack a lot at home. It's just, it's a team effort.
It's a real definition of teamwork.
Yeah, I think so.
It really is. So then now, I don't know, 8 years on from there, where you are now.
Yeah.
So you're still in Parsons Green.
We are. We've moved, I think, probably twice since that office. Really just for practical reasons, needing more space, needing, the function of the business changes, more, people in the studio, but also need for a proper meeting room. I felt like our last move the main reason was we wanted a space that we could bring clients into that reflected our projects. So we've got what we call kind of the client room, which essentially is a meeting room, but it's just a very nice meeting room.
Very nice meeting room.
And it's got lots of furniture in it, and it's a great way to give clients an example of kind of upholstery fillings, finishes, rugs, all of the stuff that we're often discussing with them and showing them samples
like a
of.
More immersive experience.
So it's like a mini kind of showroom.
So how many are you then now?
I think there's 28 of us in total.
Okay.
Which is a big number, but funnily enough, we're not often all together in one room because we do hybrid working.
Sure.
So that we didn't have to move the office again. So we've got the different teams work at home different days. So there's some crossover, but generally not everybody is in on the same day.
Sure.
So sometimes we get together. We try and do quarterly team socials.
Okay.
And then it blows my mind a little bit when I see a whole room of people and I think, wow, that's...
But even 28 people on Zoom, though, is a lot of people,
Exactly. But because we've got 3 different departments, so we've got the interior architecture department, FF&E, and then we've got procurement. So everyone's kind of doing their little bit. So there's never a need necessarily to have a full team meeting that often. It's not a kind of weekly thing. So when it does happen, it's a strange sensation for me because it's definitely not. When I started selling and making those cushions, not in a million years did I think we would be here.
Wow.
15 years later. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's very well done.
Thank you.
How about if we could talk about if there's some pivotal projects for Laura Hammett for interiors? Like, is there, or your favourite? Is there any sort of real?
I get asked a lot about a favourite, and it's hard because it changes all the time. And I often say some of our current projects are my favourites because they're where we feel like we're being our most creative. Because I always feel like that's very much a live thing.
Do you feel like you're always improving as well?
Yeah,
like everyone is better?
100%. I mean, Aaron and I are particularly kind of self-critical, which I think is something you need. I think the alternative to that is just you kind of have done a project and it's gone well and then you kind of plateau from there. I think you have to evaluate every project. We've just finished one and I'm going to see the client tomorrow. I'm never 100% happy with anything. And I think that's part of kind of what drives us forwards to do better next time. But then I look back at old projects like the one you discussed. I still really like it. There's still elements to it that I really like and I think work. And I really, a big part of our kind of design ethos is designing things that stand the test of time.
Sure.
And you can look back in 15 years and think, well, that doesn't feel too much of an era.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of our skill, of course it's improving all the time because every project you do, you learn something.
Sure.
And our team is expanding,
True.
their skill set is expanding. And we really want it to be a collaborative process. We don't want to hire people who are just churning out our vision. We want their vision too. So they're bringing something that's completely new. And that is only ever a good thing.
Absolutely. And we're working on 2 projects together at the moment. And both of them, I was thinking preparing for the show, both of them are remarkable and unique in their own
nice
right.
projects, yeah.
It's
different to each other as well.
Very different to each other.
Yeah.
Like a big family house in Chelsea and a penthouse in Marylebone.
Yeah.
But very different.
Yeah, they are different. And I do, we encourage that. We want a bit of variety within the project types, the client types. I think that's where it's interesting.
Can I ask, Laura, what does super prime mean to you?
It's difficult because I do feel like there's kind of a side to that it goes along a little bit with like the word luxury, which I take slight issue with because I think it's so overused and it stops meaning what it actually originally meant. And I think super prime is a little bit like that. But there is a large portion of London which is very much super prime in the sense that it's incredibly expensive to live in, to do work in, and the type of client is a different level, and they're quite often not a permanent resident in the UK, or they have multiple homes. So a lot of our clients, we've done multiple projects for them because they live in various different places, and they may actually only live in their London property for a couple of months in the summer.
Sure.
That's my kind of experience of super prime in terms of kind of, location in London. And super prime, I guess, in terms of design, is that what you mean?
Potentially. Some people say some people look at it and it has to be, the biggest and the best and all that. But other times you can look at it and it could just be, the most perfect apartment or the perfect street and right for that person. It doesn't have to be, the Taj Mahal or anything.
So I think that's what I mean by, sometimes I struggle with that term because I think it can seem like it's just about the wealth of it.
Exactly.
And actually I think that's wrong. It's wrong in my opinion. I feel like real proper luxury is less about kind of the flashiness of it, and it's really about that kind of seamless living, and that's what we really want to try and achieve, is something that feels really special and almost I describe a kind of quiet luxury. That's what I like, where it's kind of you don't always notice why something is perfect, but it's just perfect because 10 different people have designed it to be perfect. So whether that's to do with the sound quality, the light quality, the comfort, the ergonomics, all of those things, that is so many people's hours and hours of work that has made something
and
feel
years of experience.
Flawless. Yeah. And years of mistakes as well.
Precisely.
Things that haven't gone well have made you, have informed that thing that is seemingly so effortless, but so much effort has gone into
anything
it.
But
and that
effortless.
To me is the ultimate form of luxury. And that's what we're trying to give our clients, because they've worked incredibly hard to be where they are. We have really varied client base, but some of them have got such impressive stories. And they have come to us for that kind of the best of the best. And we enjoy doing that.
And you mentioned about how you've worked on multiple homes for the same client. I've also heard you speak before about how important the personal relationship you have with your clients is, which is obviously an enormous testament to the type of business that you have. How is it running, a business like that when a lot of these projects are international or they're global? And how do you maintain a personal relationship when you could be doing something on the other side of the world, and you're rarely in the same country as the client? Yeah.
It is different to how it used to be, for sure. But I feel like even before the pandemic, we were still working quite remotely with lots of clients for that reason. So we were quite well set up for when everything went on Zoom. I think what has changed in some ways, in a good way, is when we do spend time with clients, it's often a more quality time, because we will often go over and stay with them or stay near them and then have meals with them for kind of 3 nights in a row. Whereas if we had a client in the UK, it would be a few hours of a meeting, a bit of a chat, and then they leave. So I think it's, you kind of compensate that, maybe that regular meeting up with some more kind of intensive time. So we've had some really good relationships with overseas clients for that reason.
And do you go over then and have, like you say, 3 dinners, 3 nights in a row from a because you feel you need that for the design, or is it's part of the whole?
I think it's part of it. I think it's really, really important to get to know the clients on a personal level.
Sure.
We're designing their homes. I mean, if we were talking about commercial spaces, it would be totally different.
Yeah.
But we're designing their homes. We're designing their children's bedrooms. We often meet the children. I've had a meal. We went to Hong Kong and I sat next to a 5-year-old and we had a long conversation about her bedroom because I needed to hear it from her what she needed in her bedroom. And, it's important. I think it's incredibly important. And I know that a lot of people think that this kind of world is very superficial. I really strongly disagree. I think it's really important. And I think it's can really change somebody's kind of whole life experience to have a home that is truly reflective of them and really thoughtfully designed. And I think that's a real privilege to be able to do that. And therefore, it's not something we should just rush and do in a generic way. It's not our home. It's not our design. Our home is actually quite different from our clients' homes because we're not designing for us. We're designing for them.
Sure. I always like when we work with you guys and on your plans, you've always got the kids' bedrooms named.
Yeah, it's important.
Rather than just bed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It makes a difference. And that you may not know that, but it does actually translate all the way down into the construction process, because when all the guys are working at it, they're calling, that kid's bedroom that for months and months on end. And it becomes, more personal.
Yeah, it does. And this project we've just finished, they actually, I think they've, trying to remember the timeline, I think they got pregnant and have now got a young second child. So that whole process kind of unfolded. It was going to be a guest bedroom, and then it became a nursery, and then the child got a little bit older, a little bit more into something, and then we kind of introduced those things. It's lovely. Yeah.
Okay, so we can't have you on here without talking about social media.
Okay.
And the power of social media. I think for many of us, I think you definitely have been a bit of a trailblazer, especially in the UK, on the design scene with Instagram, particularly, moving the portfolio.
Never heard that before.
Never heard that before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of people who I know who are not in this business, who don't work with anything, they know. If I say that we're doing a project with you, they know that because they've seen it come across your page and they follow it, because it's an inspiration for themselves and whatever. And I think you've harnessed that very well.
I think I got in early. I think that was a big part of it, and not really intending it to become anything. It wasn't intended to become any kind of aspect of the business, that's for sure. It was very much kind of something I just thought, oh, this is new, I'll have a go.
Yeah.
And it really was. The first few posts were really terrible kind of quality. Are
they still there if you go all the way back?
They are still there, but God knows how you'd ever get down to them. It would take you all day. So I'm trying to think when we started, but it was a long, long time ago. And I feel like there really weren't many other designers on there, not UK ones anyway. I was struggling to find people to follow, to kind of get inspiration from. They just weren't on there. So I think it was just a bit of a kind of happy accident that we got on early. And I just enjoy, and I still do enjoy that process of sharing. I definitely have talked quite openly about my kind of comfort levels with what I share. And that has changed over the last few years, particularly as the numbers got bigger. It's a bit of a weird abstract.
Do you have another private account, like a secret?
I do have a private account, which is really just full of my kids and my friends, and really boring. And I have about I don't know how many, very small number, like 60 followers or something. Like really keep that very, very small.
Nice.
And then work is work.
Sure.
But, I do think it's important to keep it a bit personal and show a little bit about who we are, because we're a family-run business.
Sure.
We work with families. I think people want to know kind of who they're hiring. So part of it, obviously, is there's many different aspects for me. One is, it is a great way for us to find clients, to find us, particularly clients who maybe are overseas. I think that really helped us do work overseas. And you couldn't achieve that in any other way. There's no other type of marketing that would get you your work into literally the homes of random people across the world. So, it's amazing for that. But I also just enjoy sharing something within the industry. I think that's nice, because I know when I started and when I was a student and finding my feet in the industry, it was so faceless, and it was just, you'd kind of know maybe what the business owners looked like. but you wouldn't have any sense of what kind of company culture was or how big the team was, what kind of projects they were doing, what design looks like from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's everywhere now, and it's really inspiring and it's really motivating for people at the beginning of their careers. And people can kind of picture, and if it's somebody wanting a job, then they get more of a sense of what kind of company is offering what. If you're a client, you can see what team you're going to be kind of getting involved in. I think it's great.
And that's a big thing. I think clients more nowadays, they expect when they check you out online, that they can really get a feel for the, it's not like back in the day you have a faceless corporation and you just have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. Like now it's totally immersive.
Exactly. And also I think it's important to show just how much work goes into projects, because I think you can look at photos and you don't actually know what has been done. Have they just bought that piece of furniture? Was that there before? That kind of thing. Whereas if you're really able to show that before and after, or it's like we do projects that are literally new builds, so nothing in that final picture existed before, including the architecture, but also the bespoke furniture. We do so much bespoke furniture and lighting, and every single thing has hours and hours worth of work in it, and it's nice to be able to give that a bit of credit and show that process.
It's great.
It's a hard business.
It's a hard business, but also and it's also really using it to your benefit. Harnessing in the right way. You kind of have a responsibility, don't you, to do it in a way.
And sometimes that feels quite heavy. I mean, I do find social media, the responsibility of social media, quite heavy at times.
Do people come after you if you haven't posted in a couple of days?
Not so much that, but it's just I don't know. It's a lot of people who are, and you kind of can't think that much about it. You have to just kind of get your head down and do what feels authentic to you, and not worry too much. But thankfully, our industry is a particularly kind of nice place to be on social media compared to so many other industries where it can be quite ruthless. I mean, I could probably name about 3 times I've had a negative experience, and I'm grateful for that, because I don't have, my skin is not thick enough for any of that kind of stuff. So thankfully it's an enjoyable experience. You share it, people don't like it, they don't follow, they're not that bothered.
Great. So let's get on to Laura Hammett Living. I was going to say, as if all that wasn't enough that we just spoke about, could you give us a bit of an intro to Laura Hammett Living?
Well, it's really exciting, and it's very much kind of just the tip of the iceberg. So we launched in, I think it was November last year, our first kind of e-com site. So it's a separate business. Laura Hammett Living is a separate
right back
business.
At the start.
It is, and that's exactly how it feels, and that's why it's been really, really exciting for me, because I do feel like I'm kind of going back to the beginning again.
Full circle.
Of starting a business. It feels like starting a business from scratch, because in many ways you are. It's a different type of business. And so the essentially what we're trying to do is just bring a lot of what we do for our clients, but make it a little bit more, I say accessible, because obviously they're high price points, so I wouldn't necessarily say this is an accessible brand, but accessible in the sense that if you can't hire an interior designer, which is a real luxury that most people don't have, you can have a little piece of it. And at the moment we've launched with a relatively kind of small scale accessories collection, but we've got a lot coming this year, so this is a really big year. So that was what we're kind of calling a soft launch, whereas our main launch is this year. And I don't have a date yet, but we've got a very extensive furniture and lighting collection, amongst many other things, paint, wallpaper, there's all sorts of things. So it's just going to keep growing and growing, and there's a lot more accessories coming, and we really want to just, I mean, I've got 1,000 designs that I've done, 1,000 more that I've got in my head, and I just think there's kind of a lot we can do with this. And also, we're not just doing one kind of look, because I enjoy a few different aesthetics, and our projects kind of lean in different directions. Some are more contemporary, some are more of a kind of nod to heritage. And so we're bringing some of those things so that there's a nice way to kind of mix and match a few different styles, or if you just have a preference, there's a lot of choices within that. Okay,
so take me through. So I mean, all of these items are designed.
All designed by me.
All designed by you. So take me through, how do you go from having a product or an idea in your head to having a physical product that you can sell?
I mean, it's in my head, and then I have to find a way to articulate it. And I have to say that my CAD skills are rusty, but I dusted them off to do. There's a sketching process, which is a lot more of kind of the brainstorm. I also do quite a lot on Photoshop. I kind of manipulate things and take bits of something that I've loved and kind of work it into something else. And so that's a bit of the process. And then there's the CAD drawing. But usually it's kind of rattling around in my head for a while. And I'm quite... my phone is just filled with random photographs of random little details of something I've seen on TV. I'll pause the TV and take a photo of something I've seen. It'll just be a little snippet of something that's interesting, and I think that will work somewhere. I don't know where yet, but it'll work somewhere. And it might just be a junction or a combination of materials, or and then it kind of comes together. And then there's an edit, because obviously my first attempt at anything is just a lot. And then it gets kind of edited down, and it's like, okay, those pieces work really well as a kind of collection, and then pull out the ones that aren't working so well.
And then they are designed from scratch by you, and then you go out and then you have to get them manufactured.
Yes, so we're getting them manufactured, which we do on a daily basis. So
of course,
really,
yeah.
I mean, this isn't, that side of things is not a departure at all.
So that's the same supply chains in a way that you've done before.
Yeah, and it's just... it's very, very similar to what we're doing on a daily basis. We're just, I'm able to spend more time developing the designs and fine tuning it than we would normally have, because on a project we're working at a fast pace.
Sure.
Not to say that we don't obviously give every project a lot of time. Our design time is really extensive. But
if you have to design a piece that might work for multiple homes, it's different than just doing something for that exact colour scheme.
Exactly that. So if we're doing a one-off bespoke piece for a client, it only has to fit in that home.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm trying to create a collection where we've got maybe 3 different size variants and finish variants, but I've got to be able to then my kind of filter all the time is, can I place this on that project, and that project? And if the answer is yes, then that works. Yeah. Okay.
So how did the launch go?
The launch was really fun. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It felt very... Because actually we'd done some of the pieces that we've launched with, we had designed as part of a collaboration.
What did you launch with?
So we launched with... We had 100 products, and I remember that exactly, because that was quite satisfying, having 100 products. But within that are kind of cushions and, there's small items. But it's things like trays, vases, we've got faux florals, picture frames, blankets, cushions... What other categories are there? Desk accessories, really beautiful leather desk accessories. So a little bit of kind of the obvious key pieces that we buy when we're styling.
Okay.
And often, my motivation with those designs was to design something that doesn't exist that I wish existed.
Yeah.
So, for example, we've got really beautiful leather desk pads. And I really wanted one that had a kind of a pen insert along the top, which was a nice design detail, but just really functional.
Yeah.
So, it's things that I kind of wish we'd been able to find, we couldn't find. So I was like, well, let's design it.
So do you hold them all? Do you hold the stock?
We do have stock. So everything, all of the accessories is in stock,
so people
ready
can
for
get it.
Immediate dispatch. Yeah. I mean, I watch, because my phone is dinging with the Shopify sales all day, and I'm always looking at the speed that, because we're working with a specialist fulfillment company.
Okay.
And sometimes it's like within an hour they're out the door.
They're already out the door.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And we're about to launch overseas shipping.
Okay.
So I don't know when this podcast goes out, but by then I think it will
in
be
a couple of weeks.
So we should be up and running by then, but we're just testing it today. So that's really exciting. So that's going to open up, because we've had a lot of inquiries from overseas.
Amazing. And what about the next forthcoming ranges then? You mentioned furniture.
So furniture and lighting will all be made to order.
Yeah.
And that allows us to then, do a really, really extensive range. We've got a lot of pieces, because holding stock of that is just, it's not really feasible.
Yeah.
I do have plans long term. It'd be lovely to be able to have some of the kind of the key, bestsellers, just to have a few, like a quick ship kind of option on a few things, because I know that we would use that. But made to order. And for me, it's interesting because I'm now on both sides of this. So obviously being an interior designer who's been purchasing furniture for feels like decades.
Mm-hmm.
It almost is. It's really, really problematic, and it's really painful exercise. And actually, to the point that we now have an entire department within our company who specialise in procurement, because it's such a job in itself. And it used to be something that designers would do.
Just on the side.
That's not possible anymore, because it's so, with all the customs, all of the issues, but also just the unreliable
often
supply
let
chain.
down. So often let down.
It's a nightmare. And I feel really strongly about customer service being good. I just think it shouldn't be something out of the ordinary. It should be, it's absolutely, and it's got to be something that I think the business owner is passionate about, otherwise it's not going to happen. And, you know, our kind of general ethos within the design company is that if a client is chasing you, you've dropped the ball.
You've dropped the ball.
You should be updating them, and they should never be wondering about anything. And I think the same applies to sales. And I think that's our intention. You know, we will run into issues because it's a very, very difficult world at the moment. And, you know, there's only so much we can control. But my belief is that you just keep people informed, and you know, no, everyone has got a million things to do in their day, whether they're in the industry or whether they're a private buyer. They don't need to be hassling you, chasing you. Where's my whatever I bought? You know, they've got their own lives to get on with. And if you think about an interior designer, because we sell a lot to trade at the moment, and I think that's only going to increase for that reason, because we get it. We get how much pain, you know, the industry has to deal with of chasing. I mean, our team probably spend half of their day chasing suppliers, and that's not a good use of their time. That's not good business. So I really want to try and take that away and just be a reliable, you know, we will be what we say we will be, because it matters to us.
And you have a trade account facility then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a whole trade program, and we've got a team who kind of are there on hand. I'm also always there. I kind of know who's ordering what, and, you know, and I've had some nice conversations with people where they've just said, you know, I want to order this. What would you add to it? And we've kind of done a little
curated
kind of styling.
It almost.
Yeah, and that's fun, because I genuinely love all the products, and it's been a really fun exercise. It's quite different from the kind of normal day to day, and I'm enjoying.
E-com is a whole beast in itself.
It's a whole different thing, and I'm enjoying kind of, you know, jumping between the two businesses, but they complement each other perfectly. So we get to kind of display our pieces on our projects. Our clients get this kind of, you know, our clients are getting our pieces at a preferable rate, which is a nice thing for them. But it streamlines everything. It makes life easier for everybody within our company, and then we're able to kind of extend that out to other trade and other people who like what we do.
And you mentioned paint.
Yes.
I mean, there's been some really, really big successful paint from like new entrants into the market over the last few years. It'd be a very exciting one to get into.
Yeah, I'm excited, and actually we're just kind of kicking that off this week, actually. So we've done, I've chosen all of the colours. It's taken a long time. Right. This is probably the thing that's taken me longest.
Is it like making a perfume or something?
Yeah,
you have to...
I mean, you go colourblind after a while. And I've gone through so many different rounds of sampling, because what I really like to do is to kind of work with different shades. So you can pick a kind of a colour palette, but then use it in different ways throughout the home. So you've got this kind of nice flow, but one room might be a little bit moodier, or another room might be lighter, but it's in the same kind of colour vein. Okay. And but getting that flow of colour through those different shades perfect without one standing out and being a bit too... And because we specialise in kind of neutrals, I often say it to the team, why do we do this to ourselves? Why can't we just be about bold colour? Because there's so much...
Easier to photograph as well.
Well, yeah, but there's so much room for error when you're working with such kind of...
delicate.
You know, people think white's white. White is never white. Yeah. There's a million whites, and there's a million of every other version of a kind of neutral. Yeah. So we've got kind of one's a slightly greyer one, and then we've got some more interesting colours. We've got some kind of greens and blues, and then some quite rich ones as well. But it's been fun developing that, and I think it's going to be really nice, because we get asked a lot what paint colours we use. I think people find it very challenging to choose paint, because it's just, like I said, there's so many variations of what you think is kind of and for me, you put the wrong colour next to another colour and it can just completely ruin a space. So we're, hoping to kind of take some of that headache away, and it's just like, this is the go-to colour. You pair that with that, and it works. Foolproof. And here's an example of how we've used it in a project.
Great. So where can people buy?
Well, that will be online, but I'm probably speaking far too prematurely on this because it's still in development, but we are... it's getting off the ground now.
But all the pieces you have now, they can buy on your websites?
So all their home accessories, everything that's up on the website is in stock and available to buy.
On laurahammettinteriors.com.
laurahammettliving.com.
Okay.
And then laurahammett.com is our interiors site. laurahammettliving.com is the e-com site.
Okay.
You can kind of jump between the two as well. And then I will be announcing the furniture and lighting when it's ready to launch.
Very exciting.
And in the meantime, we've got loads of additional kind of, accessories being added.
Great. Amazing. Lastly, Laura, just before you go, I just want to talk a bit about the charity work that you do. I remember during COVID, the giveaways that you were doing.
Yeah.
I remember watching that, and I was really impressed by it. Got up to like 40,000 or £30,000 worth of stuff got given away.
Yeah. The value of what we gave away
amazing.
Got really high, and that's the generosity of brands. I was amazed. I think that's something really lovely that came out of COVID, was everyone kind of was just throwing themselves at, causes, wanting to feel like they were doing something. I think it gave an outlet. It definitely gave me an outlet for, at least I feel like I'm doing something, as minor as it was. And then we did raise a really nice amount of money as well, so it was fun. And
we're helping you now, we're just about to, on that women's refuge.
Yes, which is a really amazing project, actually, and the team have worked so hard on it. So it's for Furnishing Futures, and they have been around for a while, and they do such amazing work. So they basically furnish homes that women and children get rehoused to, because usually there's nothing. They just get, they're in a safe environment, but it's completely empty and they literally don't have a bed to sleep on. And after the trauma that they've been through, it's just basic human right to have, an environment that is comfortable and safe. So this charity works with donations to kind of, furnish rooms, living rooms, bedrooms, at a very, very kind of quick pace, because it's an emergency situation. It's all happened kind of within 24 hours. So this refuge is got 7 bedrooms in it, and there's a few different designers involved, and we're all kind of sharing the workload because it's a big space. And it's just a really, really important project, because these women have come from really horrific situations. We got an opportunity to go to the refuge and meet some of the families, which was quite harrowing, I'm not going to lie. There was a woman with a very young child, and she was 8.5 months pregnant. And the rooms that they are housed in are so basic. I mean, it's unbelievable how basic they are. And they're trying so hard to create these kind of environments that feel
safe
good
spaces
for their children, and somewhere where they can prepare food and eat in a civilized way, and they don't even have somewhere to sit in their own rooms to eat, and a lot of them don't want to mingle in the communal spaces. They want privacy. So it's a real amazing experience to be able to help with that, and we've kind of turned to some of our different manufacturers and tradesmen like you guys, and just seen who can donate what. And it's been amazing how many people have come forwards. And we've got some really beautiful designs. We're doing 3 of the bedrooms, and then we're kind of collectively doing the playroom and the garden space, and it's going to be really, really incredible. And we're installing it in about 8 weeks from now. So we can't wait. It's going to be quite a life-changing thing for these women. So
very special indeed.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This show is brought to you in partnership with the Better Home Company. The Better Home Company provides exceptional construction and aftercare for luxury projects across the UK and EU.